August 6th, 1945. Hiroshima wakes to a warm summer morning. Everything seems ordinary, but in just hours, this city will face a force unlike any the world has ever seen. World War II became the most devastating conflict in human history. It began on September 1st, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. Within weeks, the world was on fire. The war spread across Europe, Asia, Africa, North America, and Oceania. No continent remained untouched. Humanity had entered an age of total war. But even before that, in July 1937, far to the east, Japan had already launched its own brutal campaign, a full-scale invasion of China, known as the Second Sino-Japanese War. Cities were burned, civilians massacred, and entire regions fell under occupation. The war in Asia would soon merge with the global conflict. Japan joined the Axis powers, Germany and Italy, forming a military alliance that spanned half the planet. By May 1945, Germany had surrendered. Hitler was dead, and Europe lay in ruins. Millions returned to their homes, or what was left of them, believing the nightmare was finally over. But across the vast Pacific Ocean, the war raged on. This was not a conventional battlefield. It was a vast expanse of islands, oceans, and jungles. A brutal struggle fought across thousands of miles. The Japanese military refused to surrender. Soldiers fought to the death, choosing suicide over capture. Every island, every mile of ocean was paid for in blood. And as Allied forces pushed closer to Japan's home islands, one thing became clear. Victory would come at an unbearable cost. Meanwhile, far from the front lines, in secret laboratories and deserts, another kind of battle was being fought. A race to create a weapon so powerful it could end the war in a single strike. Humanity, exhausted by years of destruction, was unknowingly stepping toward a new threshold, one where science could no longer be separated from fear. Beyond that threshold lay a new era, an era where the power to end all wars could also end everything else. It was a quiet Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941. The island of Oahu, Hawaii, bathed in sunlight. Sailors aboard the ships of the U.S. Pacific Fleet were just beginning their day. No one suspected that in a few minutes, their world would erupt in fire. At 7:48 a.m., the sky filled with the roar of aircraft engines. More than 350 Japanese planes, torpedo bombers, dive bombers, and fighters swept in low over the harbor. Their target, the American fleet at Pearl Harbor. In less than 2 hours, 8 battleships were sunk or damaged. 3 cruisers were hit. Hundreds of aircraft were destroyed before they ever left the ground. Over 2,400 Americans were killed and nearly 1,200 wounded. Smoke darkened the sky. The water boiled with burning oil and debris. The attack was devastating, but it was also calculated. Japan's goal was clear: to cripple the U.S. Pacific Fleet and secure dominance in Asia and the Pacific. But instead, it awakened a sleeping giant. The next day, December 8, 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed Congress. His voice was calm but heavy with conviction. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. Within hours, Congress declared war on Japan. The United States had officially entered World War II. The political and military leadership of America faced a grim reality. This would not be a short war. Across the Pacific, Japan expanded rapidly, taking the Philippines, Singapore, and much of Southeast Asia. For the first time in modern history, two nations separated by an ocean were locked in a struggle that spanned the entire planet. The Pacific became an ocean of fire. From island to island, across thousands of miles, soldiers fought in conditions beyond endurance. The Japanese army, driven by the Code of Bushido, refused to surrender. American and Allied commanders knew every step closer to Japan would cost tens of thousands of lives. Plans for an invasion of Japan were already being discussed, a massive operation known as Downfall. It could last years, and the expected casualties were beyond comprehension. Somewhere in the shadows of military strategy, another path was forming, one that would change the course of history forever. A secret project. A weapon so powerful it could end the war in a single instant. Its name was the Manhattan Project. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States was fully at war. Every factory, every laboratory, every scientist became part of a single massive effort to end the conflict and protect the nation. But in secret, a far more ambitious plan was taking shape. A project so vast, so hidden, that even many generals didn't know it existed. Its name was the Manhattan Project. It began in 1942, born from a simple but terrifying idea. If the atom could be split, it might release unimaginable energy. The fear was that Nazi Germany might already be trying to build such a weapon, one that could win them the war instantly. So, America gathered its brightest minds: physicists, engineers, chemists, many refugees from Europe who had fled the very regime they now sought to stop. Under the direction of General Leslie Groves and the brilliant physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, secret facilities were built across the country. Oak Ridge, Tennessee; Hanford, Washington; Los Alamos, New Mexico. Entire towns appeared on maps that didn't exist. Workers were told only what they needed to know. Behind guarded fences and coded telegrams, the world's greatest scientific experiment began. Their mission? To harness the hidden energy within uranium and plutonium, the building blocks of the atom itself. The challenge was staggering. No one had ever built anything like it. The scientists were divided between two bomb designs, one using uranium-235 called Little Boy, the other, plutonium-239, called Fat Man. In the desert of New Mexico, at a remote place known as Trinity, preparations were underway for the first test. On July 16, 1945, at 5:29 a.m., the countdown began. A blinding flash tore through the darkness. The desert floor turned to glass. A fireball rose into the sky, expanding, pulsing, devouring the air around it. The shockwave rolled across the desert, shattering windows 100 miles away. In that moment, humanity entered a new age. Watching from a distance, Oppenheimer murmured words from an ancient Hindu text. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The scientists stood in awe, silent, overwhelmed. Some cheered. Others felt only fear. They had succeeded, but at what cost? The weapon worked, and now there was no turning back. Only weeks later, Allied leaders met in Potsdam, Germany. The war in Europe was over. Hitler was dead, the Nazis defeated. But Japan refused to surrender. President Harry S. Truman, newly in office after Roosevelt's death, faced a terrible choice: invade Japan and lose hundreds of thousands of American lives, or use the new weapon and end the war instantly. On July 26, 1945, the Allies issued the Potsdam Declaration, demanding Japan's unconditional surrender. The response from Tokyo was silence. And so the decision was made. The atomic bomb would be used, not as a test, but as a message. A message to Japan and to the entire world. Humanity had built a second sun, and soon it would fall from the sky. August 6th, 1945. Hiroshima wakes to a warm summer morning. The streets are alive with routine. Children walk to school, workers open shops, trams rattle along the tracks. Everything seems ordinary. But high above the clouds, something unseen is approaching. A silver B-29 bomber, codename Enola Gay, flies toward the city. On board, a single weapon, a bomb unlike any the world has ever known. Its name is Little Boy. The crew has been told only one thing: this mission could end the war. Inside the cockpit, the air hums with quiet tension. Every gauge, every switch, checked again and again. Outside, the morning sun glints off the wings. At 8:15 a.m., from an altitude of 31,000 feet, the bomb bay doors open. The city below glows in the early light, calm, unaware. 43 seconds after release, the world changes forever. A flash, brighter than the sun, erupts above Hiroshima. In an instant, shadows are burned into walls. The heat at the center exceeds 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 5,500 degrees Celsius. Human bodies vanish where they stand. The light alone blinds thousands. Skin chars, clothing bursts into flame. The air itself ignites. Then comes the shockwave, a force like the hand of a god crushing everything in its path. Wooden homes collapse as if made of paper. Bridges twist. Windows shatter into flying knives. People are hurled through the air like rag dolls. Within seconds, Hiroshima is unrecognizable. Fires spread in every direction. Entire neighborhoods become infernos. Survivors stagger, half blind, their clothes burned away, their skin hanging in strips. Mothers carry children who no longer breathe. Rivers fill with people, desperate, burning, crawling into the water to escape the flames, only to drown or die from their wounds. The sound of the city becomes a single, endless cry. 1 hour later, Hiroshima is a sea of fire. The few doctors and nurses still alive try to help, with no medicine, no water, no shelter. They tear their own clothes into bandages, pouring river water over burns. By nightfall, the fires consume what's left. The sky glows red, ash falls like snow. People whisper prayers for rain, and when black rain finally comes, they drink it, not knowing it carries radiation. By the end of that day, 70,000 to 80,000 people are dead. In the following weeks, tens of thousands more will die, from burns, infection, and radiation sickness. Hair falls out, skin turns purple with lesions, children cough blood, families vanish. The city, once alive with the hum of morning life, has become a silent plain of ash. Hiroshima no longer exists. In Tokyo, the first reports are confusion, disbelief. A single bomb had erased an entire city. Scientists call it a success. Soldiers call it victory. But for those beneath that flash, there are no words. For them, the sun itself fell from the sky. 3 days after Hiroshima, the world still cannot believe what happened. Radio silence. No one knows the full truth. Only rumors. A city vanished. A new weapon. Something beyond imagination. In Washington, they call it a miracle of science. In Tokyo, a tragedy beyond reason. But in Nagasaki, life continues. Children play near the harbor. Workers repair ships. The morning is overcast, clouds hiding the sun. No one expects that the sky itself will soon open again. August 9th, 1945. The target was meant to be another city, Kokura, but smoke and haze cover it, so the bomber changes course. Nagasaki becomes the next name in history. The B-29 Boxcar carries a different bomb this time, one even more powerful, called Fat Man. At 11:02 a.m., the bomb is released. It falls for 43 seconds, and then another flash. The light is blinding, the heat unbearable. A second sun blooms in the sky. Mountains echo the explosion, trapping the shockwave inside the valley. Within seconds, everything living in a 2-mile, 3.2 kilometers radius is gone. The blast pressure reaches 35 tons per square meter. Concrete bends. Steel melts. A hospital full of patients disappears in flame. The cathedral, Urakami, once the largest in East Asia, is crushed into dust. The sound rolls across the mountains, a deep, endless thunder. Those who survive describe it not as an explosion, but as the world itself breaking. People search for family among the ruins, calling names that will never be answered. The river fills again with bodies. The air smells of smoke and metal. For the second time in human history, and the last, the atom has been unleashed on a city. Some say it was necessary. Others say it was unforgivable. In the ashes, both truths seem the same. That evening, the survivors look toward the sky, not with anger, not even fear, but with a kind of silence that no words can reach. One doctor, too weak to stand, writes in his journal, "It is not the end of the war I have seen today. It is the end of humanity as I knew it." The next morning, black rain falls again. Days later, Japan surrenders. The war is over. But for those who lived through Nagasaki, peace feels like a ghost, something distant, unreal. The survivors, called hibakusha, will carry their wounds for decades, not only in their bodies, but in their memories. Nagasaki, once a port of trade and faith, becomes a monument to both, destruction and rebirth. And as the smoke clears, one truth stands. Humanity learned how to split the atom, but not how to heal the soul. When the fires of Nagasaki faded, a strange silence fell across the world. The war was over, but the victory did not feel like triumph. In newspapers, headlines celebrated peace. Yet the photographs, cities erased, shadows burned into walls, told another story. Humanity had crossed an invisible line, and there was no turning back. For the first time in history, a single weapon had the power to end entire civilizations. The atomic bomb was not just a tool of war. It was a mirror, showing humanity what it was capable of. In Washington and Moscow, generals studied the blast reports, scientists debated what they had created, and politicians whispered about power. The atom, once a symbol of invisible beauty, had become the heart of a new age, the atomic age. In laboratories, the same minds who built the bomb now dreamed of peaceful uses: electricity, medicine, progress. But in secret, nations began building more bombs. Bigger, faster. Bombs capable of erasing entire continents. The scientists, once heroes, began to question their own work. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the bomb, spoke softly before Congress. "I have become death, the destroyer of worlds." The world listened, but the race had already begun. But beyond the laboratories and headlines, 2 cities still burned, silent witnesses to humanity's awakening. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 2 cities that will forever carry the memory of human power unleashed. Tens of thousands died instantly. Countless others suffered silently in the days, months, and years that followed. From the American perspective, the bomb ended a war that had raged for 6 long years. Soldiers' lives were spared. A bloody invasion of Japan was avoided. Newspapers celebrated the triumph of science, strategy, and decisive action. But in Japan, the reality was unbearable. Streets became rivers of fire. Families, homes, and entire neighborhoods were gone in an instant. Survivors carried scars both visible and hidden, reminders of a suffering that would shadow generations. For them, the bomb was not a weapon of peace. It was the very embodiment of horror, destruction, and helplessness. Who can say who was right? Can we judge? The United States saw necessity, strategy, and the preservation of its soldiers. Japan saw devastation, innocence lost, and the unthinkable power of science turned against humanity. In the quiet reflection of history, we are left with questions, not answers. Can the end ever justify the means? When human knowledge exceeds human morality, does victory come at too high a cost? Hiroshima and Nagasaki are not just ruins. They are mirrors, reflecting both human ingenuity and human fragility. The bomb did not merely end a war. It began the atomic age, an era in which the power to destroy entire civilizations rests in human hands. We are left with memory, reflection, and responsibility. May we never forget. May we never repeat, and may we honor those lessons with every choice we make, today and tomorrow. What do you think? Did humanity truly learn from the atomic age? Leave a comment below, and if you're new here, welcome. Subscribe, and let's keep exploring the universe and ourselves, one story at a time.